So impressed by the people that are here today. One of my biggest pet peeves is we do not teach financial literacy to our kids. So I have a 22-year-old, I have a 19-year-old. They know the Pythagorean theorem and differential equations and don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to endorse a check. They don't know the wonders of compound interest, right? It's fine that they don't know that there's a catch-up contribution when you turn 50. That's fine, but they don't know the basic stuff. So the fact that you all are here today to do that on your own, I would, if we were all together and I'd put on gloves, I would run around and high five all of you for being here, and just so thrilled that you are taking the initiative here. And so in many ways, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to the people who are reaching out, who are loving this stuff. So I'll start with that. Secondly, I watched Delia's presentation and she stole all my thunder. So she has some of the same exact words and phrases as what I want to say here. And as I was actually laughing. I wasn't frustrated. I was laughing as I was watching this, because it's not stealing the thunder. We're putting an exclamation point on these points. That's really what this is about. So if three advisors, if you get a room of advisors, we can't agree on what color the wall colors are, but if we're agreeing on the same things about your finances, man, you're on the right track overall. So the title of my oh, there's Delia laughing right there. So when Delia gave the Einstein line, which is quoted on one of my slides, I laughed out loud. So, and then I will mention one really important thing. Delia, there is a reason why I have a lot of the same things from Delia, because Delia was my first instructor when I went back to the financial planning program. She was clearly 8 years old at the time, because she couldn't possibly be old enough to be my teacher and what she is. But I go back and say, gosh, I started with a good core, and I was giving Delia a hard time through the chat. So anyway.
Mark was already a pension expert when he took my class, so.
Yeah, I bit my tongue to jump in on some of the questions on 401ks and 403bs.
Oh, good, speak up.
I'll admit. So anyway, glad that you're here, glad to be here. And we'll take a little bit different dive into the topics here, but a lot of these are, again, exclamation points on the same points. The difference here is we're going to take this, Delia was more of a broad overview, and I'm going to take it and say, what are the priorities for the stages? Should you be worrying about a flexible spending plan details, which are great, but what should you worry about first? Should you worry about that credit card debt first, right? These kind of things. So prioritizing all of these things. Now I wanted to call the presentation, make sure I get my slides going here. I considered calling the presentation the Financial Planning Big Rocks for Every Life Stage. And when I mentioned this to Lori and some of the other team members, they immediately went, no, it's an awful idea. And I'm bringing it back. So even though my wife agreed it was terrible, even though, but you're all here, right? So 33 people are in here right now. So you're an audience that you're stuck with this concept. What the heck am I talking about when I talk about financial planning big rocks? Well, let me tell you a story. This story comes from Stephen Covey, and I'm adopting it here. I'm just setting my timer here. I'm adopting it here. So imagine a professor walks into your classroom and he has this large empty jar, and he holds it up and he takes a bag, and he takes out, in that bag are a bunch of large rocks, and he carefully fits each of the rocks into the jar till he can't fit any more rocks into the jar. And he asks the class, is the jar full? And this is the first day of class. Kids are not answering any questions on the first day of class, and the very first question for sure. Delia knows that, is nodding as she says. Well, they're like hemming and hawing, and then he reaches out and pulls out another bag. This bag has pebbles in it, and he clearly can fit a bunch more pebbles into the jar. So he pours more and more jar, and he gets that all the way to the brim, and he says, is the jar full? And some of the kids are a little bit wary, of course, and some are saying yes, some are saying no. And of course, he reaches, pulls out another bag. This one's full of sand. And he pours the sand all the way to the brim of the jar. Now, the story differs from person to person here, but he asks, what is this lesson? And some students say, well, there's always more time, and it's a time management question. And of course, the teacher can actually pull out water now and pour water into the jar and fill the jar. And the professor says, no. This jar represents your life. The big rocks represent what's truly important in your life, while the pebbles are lesser important and the sand are the non-important things. So the point of all of this is, if you fill the jar full of your sand and pebbles, you never get to the big rocks. And this is through Stephen Covey's work, is a life lesson, right? What are the big rocks in your life? Your relationships, your health, your finances are one of the big rocks in your life. And I love this example because you get to really thinking about, should I be worrying about the minutia of the stain on my shirt is frustrating me, where big deal, I'm at a picnic with my kids on their birthday, right? And I'm doing the important things in our life. So, but I'm going to extrapolate this out to the worlds of finance. And actually, this big rock idea works really well for everything. It works really well for not just, you can take one rock and then you can extrapolate and do the big rocks from that rock, the big slices from that rock. So it applies to finances. There's a financial big rocks in your life. Make sure you're doing those financial big rocks first before you get to the other areas. And so that's what we're gonna cover today, is the financial big rocks for each of the different life stages. Now, the sad truth is, this is what's so frustrating to me, is CNBC, Kramer on TV, Money Magazine, Kiplinger's, every book, 90% of the books that are on the shelves, blogs, everything, all the financial press, everything that you'll go out and read is focusing on the pebbles in the sand, right? Should you buy this hot stock manager? Should you own gold? These are pebbles and rocks. And if you're focusing, it's so easy to think, and when it's being presented to you, well, I mean, a perfect example, do we need to know that where the Dow is to 2 decimal places every minute of every day that the markets are open? This isn't even sand. This isn't even a grain of sand. This is nothing of importance. So why are they showing that ticker that's going across the screen all day long, every day? And how am I to figure out what is important when the thing that's on there 90% of the time is not the least important thing there? So that's what we're going to focus on today. What are the financial big rocks in each stage of life? Well, we normally think of stages of life as being ages, right? We normally give advice for, oh, here's what you do in your 20s, here's what you do in 30s, here's what you do in your 40s. And the reality is there's life stages. People have different stages of their lives. And I have people that are working into their 70s. No, because they love it, because they want to work, maybe not even because they have to work. Some do have to work. I've got people that are just getting started in their 20s. I've got people just getting started in their 40s. I've got people just getting started in their 50s. And that might be because of financial setback. It might be because of a divorce. It might just be that they got started really late, but they're in these different stages. So what are the stages? And I originally had Disney characters represent each of these stages. And I was worried that Disney would get mad at me for stealing their images. But for the getting started phase, I'll use these icons to represent the different phases here, right? So the getting started phase, this is where you basically have nothing. You're just getting started. You have no real responsibilities financially. You have no people that you're responsible for. And there's opportunities ahead of you. The maturing phase, I hate the word maturing, just ultimately, but life is more stable, things are moving along, you have a good start, right? So you've got your career going, but maybe you're starting a family, you're buying homes, you really now have responsibilities ahead of you, or current responsibilities. Nearing retirement. You're now seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You're winding up your working years. You've built some kind of nest egg, and you really need to start thinking about what are the steps as I ease into retirement. And then I've got the in retirement phase, and that umbrella could be on a beach or in a adult beverage, however you want to look at it in the icon there. But you're no longer working. You're living on your nest egg. You're living on your income sources, right? So those are the different stages. I do want to point out that as we go through this, ask your questions now. So I don't know if anyone has this experience, but if I pick up my kids from school and say, how was your day? I get a 20-minute lecture about how their day was. If I ask them when they get home 20 minutes later, they say fine. They don't have anything. So type in your questions as they come up, because otherwise we get to the end and it's going to be, oh, that was fine, right? So happy to answer, and then we'll store them up and we'll answer them at the end. And then the one question that we're going to get for sure is, can I get the slides? There's a lot of information here, a lot of the slides. Yes, you can get them. We'll put them together and somehow get them out to you. Lori might have some, but either we'll email them or we'll make them available. So no need to be scribbling notes, especially as we go through these things. My things are higher level than Delia's, but the same concepts definitely apply here. I'm going to totally cheat here. So to start off, I just told you I was going to tell you the financial rocks for each of the life stages. And as I started to sketch all this out, I recognized that the same things apply to every life stage. And so I'm going to cheat and tell you several financial big rocks for every stage of life. So this applies whether you're getting started or in retirement. And these are where Delia has these same concepts apply from Delia. So I'm so glad we're in total agreement, almost word for word. So I will go into these in more detail. Know where you are today. This is one of my most important things. Understand your expenses, put things on autopilot. Delia hit that home, I think, really well, and I'm so glad she did. So know where you are today. I'm shocked how few people know where they are in their situation. And so the story that I always tell is we walk into a mall. Let's say we're in an unfamiliar city. We need new jeans from Old Navy, and we know that we go into the mall. And what's the first thing we do? Do we just start wandering around the mall in hopes that there's an Old Navy store in there? And no, we go find a map. And on the map, we look for this big red dot. And what does the red dot say on it? You are here, right? This is where you are. And you have to find that, your financial red dot. Where are you today? Now, the red dot in the mall does not judge you, right? If you got lost on the way to the mall, if if you're struggling to find it on the map, whatever it may be, there's no judgment here. And the same is true here. When you're sketching down where you are, no judgments, right? My son is getting started. He has a checking account. He has a Roth IRA. That's it. It's very simple. There's no judgment here. If you're just getting started or wherever you are, so don't let the idea that, oh, I sketch it all down and it's embarrassing to you, phase you. You're doing this. You're ahead of 90% of the people out there. Just being here today, you're ahead of 90%. I'd say 99.8% of people that are taking initiative and doing the right things. So what do? Well, you're going to take it on a piece of paper. So let me tell you what you're not going to do. So a financial advisor would say, well, you just need to build a balance sheet, and then you need to build an income statement with your debits and credits, and then you need to have a complete list stapled, alphabetized of all your insurance items. And then then you bound it, you put it in a binder, and no. Where are you? We're looking for this red dot, right? Take out the sheet of paper, divide it into 4 quadrants. In the upper, one of the quadrants, right? Income items. What are you going to list there? This is probably the easiest section to list. We all pretty much know where we are income-wise. We know what's coming in, right? I make money from my work. I might get a pension. I might get Social Security. I might get rental income. I might get allowance from my mom, whatever it might be. What are the income items? Most people can sketch this down, and you're going to write down what it is, salary, and how much it is. Rounded, we're not looking for pennies here. We're not looking for perfection. That red dot in the mall may be offset by a 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to be the perfect spot. You need to know generally where you are. The next section, assets, fancy word for what I own, right? What do you own? Do you have a checking account? Do you have a savings account? Do you have an IRA, a Roth IRA, 401k, 403b, a home, a car? What we're not listing here is your clothing, your shoes, your prized trophy that you have behind you. I don't have any trophies behind me, but any of the things that really aren't things that you would use to help you in your retirement, right? Things that could help you towards reaching your financial goals. And then those are both the fun items to list. And again, you're listing IRA, you might list where it is, and you might list the amount. Again, round it. If it's $6,314, write 6,000 or 6,300. I'm totally okay with that. All the things that you own. Liabilities, fancy word for what I owe. Student loans, mortgage, credit cards, owe my mom some money, whatever it might be, list all the things that you owe. If you're brave enough, add up the things that you own and add up the things that you owe and compare the two. And that's your net worth, right? You can see it right here, a nice net worth sheet. And, but again, you're listing what it is and how much it is that you owe. And the last thing is list your insurance coverages. Do you have car insurance, health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, whatever those items are, and list them on the page and some detail as well. And when you've done this, and I'm going to ask you to do this tomorrow, when you do this tomorrow, you're going to have your financial picture all on one page. And next year, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. And you're going to look at it and say, look, I'm ahead. I paid down those credit cards. I raised my 401k balance. My salary went up. My car insurance is now at the right levels, all these things. And you get to see your progress and be proud and pat yourself on the back for the work that you do. Sometimes the work that we're doing, paying down the mortgage or paying down the credit card debt, get lost and you don't take credit. So if you do this once a year, it's the most romantic date I have with my wife, sitting down with this. I totally joke, but she rolls her eyes, we sit down, we go through it, and we do this year after year. If you do this, you're ahead of 90% of people and you're on the right phase. You can't get to where you want to get to if you don't know where you're starting. And I'm taking more time on these every stage things because I think they're so important. Understand your expenses. A lot of people have no idea. Am I talking about the B word, budgeting word? No, I'm talking about having a general idea of where your money's going, where this is going. The shortcut that works for almost everyone. What did you make? What's your income? Net pay, for example. If you save some of that, take that out, and the rest was spent, right? We spend what we make. We spend what we get at the end of the day. And this is one of the problems that we have. So having that savings component is important. We'll talk about that later. If you are having budgeting problems where your income is less than your expenses, then I'm sorry, but you have to start doing some budgeting work. And whether you work through a really detailed budget, I don't think most people need to, but whether you look at your required expenses, your savings, your controllable expenses or discretionary expenses, look at those and figure out where you might be able to make things work if you're behind on any of these areas. You understand your expenses, you're ahead of the next group of folks, and you're now getting to be just in control of your financial life. And then Delia hit this home really well. I think it's so true. Put things on autopilot. People that do this are ahead of things. Out of sight, out of mind. My favorite Warren Buffett line, or one of my favorite Warren Buffett lines, is do not save what's left after spending. Instead, spend what is left after saving, right? So pay yourself first, save first, and that will will automatically help you be more disciplined in your spending. I'll tell a quick story that we actually are all very good about making decisions about in the future. We're very good about making decisions about our future selves. And one of the studies that's related is a study where there is a staff meeting and they say, we're having a staff meeting next week and we're gonna have fruit and candy bars. Check a box, which one would you like? And guess what everyone puts on there? Fruit. Everyone checks the fruit box, right? We're very good about knowing what we want later on. But if we said, the same study said, oh, we have snacks outside. Would you like the fruit or the candy bars? People are fighting over the candy bars, right? We're not good at making long-term decisions right now. We're really good at making even a week in the future. So what do? You automate it. You make the decision now. I'm going to save 5% of my salary, 7%, 10%. And I do that and I set it up in the most automatic way available to me. So is that a salary deferral from a 401k, fancy way of saying contributing to my 401k? Maybe. If you set that, it's taken out. You're doing what Warren Buffett's telling you. You're saving first and spending what's left. If you don't have a 401k, 403b, 457 plan, these automated versions available to you, do it yourself. You can ask, if you're setting aside money into your checking account or your Roth IRA, anything, you could just say, I get paid on the first, on the second, take $100 and move it to my emergency fund. Take $300 and move it to my Roth IRA, whatever that number is. If it's 13 cents, I don't care. Automate it and have it move over automatic, out of sight, out of mind. At the end of the year, you will be very happy that you did this. And most people don't even miss the dollars when they do it, especially when they're in the 5-10% range. And that Delia story that she told about the person who gave the advice and they just followed the advice and they're like, it's kind of a miracle that I got $850,000 here. That's the story. That's the story we see over and over again. People made good decisions. He didn't make a good decision every day. He made a good decision by following that person's advice early on. And this is true whether you're at any of the life stages. The other thing is commit to increasing those savings rates. If you can only save 5% of your salary now, no problem. I would say bump it to 7 and see if that works. But if you can get 5, that's great. But commit to every raise that I get, I'm going to increase my savings by half of that raise, for example. So if I'm saving 5% this year, I get a raise. Next year, I'm saving 7%. My cost of my world gets better. What I have available to spend today gets better, but also my savings goes up at the same time. And you automatically, and in no time, you're saving 15% of your salary. You never missed it, and you're off to the races. In retirement, autopilot also is very valuable for people that just treat their big IRA as a checking account where they just write checks off of it every once in a while, whenever. I think they tend to get in trouble. They tend to not know what they're spending their money on. And I would encourage them to set it so that just like they get their Social Security check every month or the pension check every month, set that so their account's sending them a certain amount every month, their retirement paycheck, and that will, then they can keep better on track. And then we definitely encourage that all the time. I'm going to sneak in 2 of the most classic things that we wag our fingers about to people all the time, and not cover these in too much detail, but have an emergency fund. The survey came out not too long ago. 40% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 expense. That is horrifying to me. It's horrifying. And what does that mean? That means that they're going out to credit cards, they're paying late penalties. And so a $400 expense is 2 tires, right? 2 tires on your car. They can't get new tires. Some people are just driving on bald, awful tires, right? At the end of the day, that's what they're doing. So they're deferring the use, or they're using payday loans, or the worst of all, they asking their parents for money. Like the scariest, worst thing of all. So it's horrifying. Set aside 3 to 6 months of spending what you spend for emergencies. And last year was a perfect example. People that never thought they would be out of work, dentists, dental hygienists, physical therapists, people that have steady, no matter what the world does, we thought they were safe and their income was safe from month to month. We saw that folks with emergency funds weathered that a lot better. And fortunately, the government stepped up and was able to help people keep afloat. But man, it would have been really scary for a lot of people if that wasn't the case. And I think Delia's slide had these exact words on there, but wisely manage your debt, right? Americans owe $420 billion in credit cards. The average credit card rate is north of 18%. That's a horrifying figure. And if you're paying on credit cards, go right to Delia's slides and go to her recommendations about how to take care of these. Paying extra on your credit cards is the same as making an investment at that investment rate. So there's nothing, the best investment you'll make is to put money onto a credit card. There are one or two exceptions. I won't dig into them here, as the financial planners on this list probably are thinking one or two exceptions, but you can do a lot better, do a lot worse by paying down your credit cards. Start there. If that's the biggest issue, you need to start there at any stage. Let's talk about the getting started phase. So these are folks that are just getting started. I don't care what your age is, have few responsibilities, few assets. Set and prioritize your goals, invest in yourself, and start. And in fact, I'm so important, I put it 3 times. Start. Get started now. Setting and prioritize your goals. You're young, you have the goals way ahead of you. If you aim for nothing, you'll hit it every time. I don't know who said that. I saw lots, I couldn't say exactly. It sounds like a Yogi Bear line to me, but it's totally true. Set those goals, make sure they're specific and measurable. I was going to include an entire section on what are called SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, reality-based, and time-based. I'm probably messing up one of those letters, but set the goals very specifically, right? I want to lose weight is different than I want to lose 7 pounds over the next 7 months. And then use those goals to help you move in the right direction. Then how am I going to get there? I'm going to get there by stop eating French fries, not drinking those fancy lattes, and exercising 3 days a week. Do the same thing for this. I want to save 60,000 over the next 6 years to pay. How am I going to get there, right? This is very specific. How am I going to get there? I'm going to set aside this amount of money in a checking account every month until we get there. Unfortunately, when you write these goals, I would say write them on a bunch of Post-it notes and then stick them on a wall and then put them in a hierarchy. Which one's the most important, right? What's the big rock of your financial goals? What's that? So put those, and unfortunately, there's going to be some ones that are at the bottom of the list. So your trip to Europe might have to wait until you get your credit cards paid off, for example. So balance those, and unfortunately, things will be delayed of those goals overall. Invest in yourself. I'm always struck by the difference in how much education is. I mentioned the $420 billion that's in credit cards. It's like in the range of $1.6 trillion in student loans, which is horrifying to me. So I definitely think people have to be really aware of not overspending for college education. But if my son's going to be a high school history teacher, he should not go to Stanford. As much as I would be proud that he would make it into Stanford, he should not pay Stanford fees to be a high school history teacher. Just the financials don't make sense there. But this is a point of how important the different levels of education are. It's not too late to go get that bachelor's or go get that professional degree. And this is 1 year difference here, right? From roughly 47,000 a year to almost 75 on average to over 150 on average for these different areas. And when unemployment spikes, it's not the PhDs and master's degrees that are unemployed. It's not the bachelor's degree at the same level. It's these folks that are really the ones struggling. And we saw that in spades with what's happened with COVID. But, and this is the point I really want to make, don't underestimate the non-formal stuff. Taking a class in public speaking, clearly I need to, right? But taking a class in public speaking, taking a certificate program, that $250 to be a better at Excel or to be better at Word, to listen and read more and more, listen to podcasts, read more. Look for the things that are your interest, dig into them and invest in it. So I can say all day long, stick $250 into a Roth IRA, but the person who took $250 and did an Excel course that helped them move forward could be worth just multiples and multiples than we'll ever get. So don't underestimate the lifetime learning and the benefit of that. Start. Delia had a chart on this. I've extrapolated out. She actually said the words, the eighth wonder of the world. She's clearly copied was been watching me as I was putting this together. Take advantage of the time that you have. You have something. Getting started phase has something none of the other phases has. It is time. You have the advantage of time. So here's twins. The twins are together. The one twins, they both say, we're going to save $6,000 a year for 30 years. Not raise it, just let's make a pact, right? And one of them starts today. The green one starts today. And the yellow one well, we agreed on it, but I'm going to start when I'm 35 years old. So they both save exactly the same amount of money, $180,000 over 30 years, $6,000 a year for 30 years. And look at the difference between the two. Now, I would point out that the second one, they have it was like $650,000. They saved $180,000 down here, and they ended up with $650,000. High-fiving themselves, so exciting, until they call their sister, who started when she was 25, and she says she has $1.25 million over that time. Again, she saved $180,000. And this is not at some wacky growth rate, 12% a year growth rate. This is long-term reasonable expectations. Start early. Don't let this say, Mark, great, where were you when I was 25 years old? I'm 45 now. Start now. It's start at any phase. The best time to save was last year. The second best time to save is today. And anything in the future is just getting further behind. Maturing. What are the maturing big rocks that we have? Well, at this point, you have things and people that you're responsible for. Be intentional about your retirement savings. Know that you're still in the early phase. Just get started and start doing it. Now you need to be more intentional. Protect what's important. Delia had talked about this really well, and set up an estate plan. Delia talked about this really well as well. I'll cover the same ideas. Be intentional. It's great to have a start, but know that you're actually heading towards that target, right? So it's cool to be I think about what is it? They blindfold you and spin you around 3 times and head you towards the wall with the pin the tail on the donkey, right? It's great that you're walking towards the wall, but at this point you need to have someone help you move a little bit closer to the actual donkey, right? Have it make a twist or turn. So peek under the mask a little bit here, take a look, and then make an adjustment and make sure you're actually heading to that, instead of everyone watching and laughing as you're heading towards the pool, about to walk into the pool at the barbecue, right? So make sure you're heading in the right direction here. I would say for most people, they can do this themselves using basic online financial tools that don't dig into all the weeds. All we're doing is trying to head towards the doorway. We're not trying to hit a target here. We're trying to hit a doorway here. Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, all have decent online tools that will help you make sure you have some kind of reality check there. So I would say just type Vanguard online calculator and you'll find a couple tools there. Same is true with T. Rowe Price, which I like a lot, and Fidelity. The earlier you make the changes, the smaller the changes need to be. Our government is terrible at deferring big decisions till later, and then they have to make big law changes. It's so much easier to say, I need to save $200 more a month today than to say, I need to save $3,000 more a month in 5 years, when it's impossible to do that. So make sure you're on the right track and make those adjustments as early as possible. When you're talking about retirement savings, again, college savings is a competing need. There are no scholarships for college, again, quoting Delia again. And there's no scholarships for retirement, but there are options for kids to get through college. So make sure that you're prioritizing those in the right way, because your kids don't want you living with them. They don't want you living with them. So good. Thanks for putting me through school, Dad, as you're on their couch. That's not a good, that's not a trade-off they would want to make. Protect what's important. This is the insurance lesson. You have to protect against loss. There's the key things are health, homeowners, renters, and auto insurance. You have to have those. Consider different deductibles and co-pays if you're struggling to make those payments, and you can work with your insurer to get there. I do think you need to think about your insurance needs to make sure you have enough, but not too much, before you walk in the door and ask your insurance person what they recommend, especially when it comes to life insurance. Don't ask your barber if you need a haircut, is my line all the time. Of course you need a haircut, every barber ever said. And of course you need more life insurance, every insurance person, salesperson ever said. So make sure that you're doing that. Life insurance is important to protect your income over long periods of time in case you die prematurely. I think term life is the starting point, should be the core of that. Very few people need lifetime insurance, right? You need insurance to cover your income. And I see Mark Silverbar shaking his head a little bit, but we'll agree to disagree. And but term life, I think, is a great, for sure, to build the core of what you have for coverage. When you get these other areas covered, then start looking at disability and start looking at umbrella. Umbrella, you can move up to the top of the list, but start looking at these other options there. No one likes paying insurance, but man, we've seen, all of us have seen cases where insurance was just thank goodness they had insurance at the end of the day. When that surgeon gets, has that arm injury, or when, obviously awful things happen. Have an estate plan. If you don't have an estate plan, the government has one for you. If nothing puts like a shiver down your spine, then the government will decide where your kids go if you are gone, and where your money goes if you're gone. That's really scary. Again, we're in the mature phase, so you have stuff now. You have people that you're responsible. You have stuff now. These are the legal documents that make decisions if you're bonked on the head or if you're gone. It doesn't, they really are valuable. And certainly to decide where your minor children go is super important. My wife and I had this all sketched down in our will. Every time we went to a friend's barbecue, we would leave and say, I think we should change the guardians for our kids, right? And then we go to the next one and we would want to change it every week. But you get to decide instead of the government defaulting to someone. Make sure that you name beneficiaries on your insurance policies, retirement accounts, IRAs, annuities. Check them every once in a while. Make sure they're correct. Everyone who walks in my door says, I got it covered, whatever, until I dig out through and I see, well, did you want to have your ex-wife receive half of your IRA? Those things happen. So make sure that those will happen regardless of what you have in your will or your estate planning documents. Those are what drive where the money goes. And if you aren't ready for a living trust, maybe you don't have substantial assets, there's what's called a TOD, a transfer on death. One of the most morbid of all things that I say, pay on death or transfer on death accounts. This is basically adding a beneficiary to your account. You can say on your checking account, I want to add a transfer on death, and if you die, the money goes to them, very much like it would in your 401k or IRA. The next phase is the nearing retirement phase. Here, we really start to make some really big, hard decisions here. Run a reality check, plan your Social Security decisions, and begin to transition your assets towards that retirement that you're heading towards. The reality check. So we talked about, when you're in the early phases, I just need you walking towards the light. in your middle phase, in the next phase, I need you walking through that doorway. And now I need to make sure you're going to hit the target. You actually are on target to hit that target. So here you really have to start putting pen to paper and do those more detailed retirement projections and make sure that you're doing that. I think it's very difficult to do this without a professional, unfortunately. I mean, I'd love to say you can do it yourself, but there's so many assumptions. In fact, if I ask the 7 financial advisors how much someone can spend, we're going to have 7 answers, maybe 9 answers. So but we'll be in a tighter range. If I ask someone to do it themselves, they're going to make some wacky assumptions, and the range is it's just scary what the range could be. You might think that you can't retire when you can, and you might think you can retire when you can't. So I do think some real number crunching is required. But I think the other thing is to have a mock retirement and think about, what are you going to do in retirement? There's the life aspect of all of this, right? So my pediatrician, I remember this vividly, he retired. From 3 till I think I was 17 years old. Dr. Ross, great, he retires. Oh, well, what a bummer. And then 7 months later, Dr. Ross is back. And I had a sore throat, and there he's back. And I'm like, what are you doing? You retired. And he's like, you can only play golf so many days, Mark. That's where he was. He didn't go through the exercise of thinking about, what does retirement look like to him? What would it be like? So what did he do? He was in the office 2 days a week. That was his solution. So he could golf 2 days a week. He could be in the office 2 days a week. And that was the great solution for him. He didn't need to work. I'm certain of that. But he was able to do that. The other is this going to be stressful for you and your spouse? I had a client who joked with me. She said, the secret to my marriage is my husband travels with business all the time, right? And she winked at me as she said it. But it can be 2 people in a house. We're seeing that now with COVID. People that are happy families locked and doing Zoom calls back to back all day long doesn't work for everyone. So make sure that there's the other things is part of the reality check that you are getting to. And then know that there is no one answer to these things. Again, I'm trying to hit a target here. I'm not trying to hit the bullseye, I'm trying to hit the target here. And these are projections. We are predicting the future. We should all be wearing Swami hats, that's the right term, but some kind of hats that show how many guesses we are really doing when we're doing these projections. We're projecting tax rates, we're projecting what Congress will do, we're projecting what the stock market and bond markets will do over time. Plan your Social Security decisions. This goes into that people walk in the door and make a decision, and it's very costly decision. Make sure most people, I forget, it's like 50% of people take Social Security at their earliest opportunity, and that's a lifetime decision that is really costly. This is an example here, and let me back up. Social Security is a big deal. Sadly, at least 50% of income, Social Security amount accounts for at least 50% of income for more than half of the 65 and plus population. And believe me, the Social Security system was not meant to be a retirement system. It was meant to keep you $3 out of poverty. That's all it does for you. So these people are $3 out of poverty for at least half of their stuff. But it is a great system. I don't think it's going away. I don't worry about it. And so most people are saying at 65, I'm worried about it changing. They're running in the door, or 62, they go run in the door and they claim it. And it's a big problem. Think about it, what works best for you. Again, we're guessing how long you're gonna live, but make some really good estimates. This chart here is a couple that I just did the work. Surprisingly, his name was him and her name was her. That's pretty cool. But they were running we ran the numbers of their Social Security. These are not big buck, making the maximum Social Security owners over time. And their combined Social Security amounted to $1.6 million. They both had longevity. Both of their parents were still alive into their 90s. So our expectation is they would live in similar timeframes. But they said, hey, we're gonna go in next Thursday and we're gonna claim. They were just retiring. And I ran the numbers and I said, oh, in this case, by him taking the benefits today and Herb taking the benefits in the future, guess what? That benefit is now 1.7, expected long lifetime benefit, $1.7 million. Almost $100,000 difference by them making some decisions about delaying retired Social Security. So be intentional about this. For most people, delaying is one of the best deals around. Social Security is a lifetime benefit. It's guaranteed. It goes up each year with inflation. It has some tax efficiencies. I cannot say enough about making sure be very intentional about your Social Security and run the numbers. And then begin to transition your assets. I'm really oversimplifying the investment stuff here, but as you're heading into retirement, if 90% of your money's in growth assets, stock market type assets, and you have that party where they give you the gold watch, and then you look at the CNBC and it shows that the markets are down 25% in 3 weeks, like it was this last March, man, that can mean that's a whole different retirement party there, right? It can change everything. So start to think about protection of assets as you get closer to those retirement years. Do it slowly. You don't, hooray, balloons, everything, then go from X percent in growth assets to lower in growth assets. In this chart here, we can see that this, for example, was 70% in growth assets, and they're 5 years away from retirement, and then they went to 50-50 with the target of maybe being 60-40. And I'm oversimplifying here, but just having more and more protection can be valuable. But you can't be all or the other. Small shifts are the best to just make it over time, morph the portfolio over time to get to where you want to. And again, you still have a 30-year time horizon. So the day you retire, you don't get the cash and everything is sticking under the mattress. You have a 30-year time horizon. So consider that definitely. And then we go to the in retirement phase. Where are you here? What are the things that we should be doing? Hitting home on the last point I was making, balance your investments for protection and growth, have a plan to cover potential long-term care needs, and monitor your progress. Balancing protection and growth, we talked a little bit about this. While you're saving for retirement and the market goes down, guess what? You're saving at better prices, at lower prices. There's a sale. When you're in retirement and prices go down and you take the money out, guess what? It never gets to grow again. You took it out and it grows. So they call it dollar cost averaging when you're putting the money into the market and you're taking advantage of bumpiness. It's dollar cost ravaging when you're in retirement and you're taking it out at the bad time. So you really need to think about bumpiness in the markets and how it impacts you as a retiree. That means you have to have more of the protection assets. And the terminology I'm using is just high level, but growth assets are typically things like stocks and maybe real estate type investments, and protection are boring things like cash and bonds. But the boring things are there when things go wrong in the stock markets. And unfortunately, you can't be all or nothing. You will get in trouble. I've not yet seen very many people that have enough to just stuff it all under the mattress. And I certainly, it's really scary to see people that are super, super aggressive here. And with the last 10 years of the market returns, we extrapolate that forever. We think, wow, it's been going up at 9% a year for the last 10 years. It'll go up by 11% a year for the next 10 years. That's not how it works. Sadly, I would love for that to be the case for sure. Have a plan for long-term care needs. The biggest thing that will derail even the best plans is the long-term need for long-term care. It's ridiculously expensive to care for someone. And between $7,500, $9,000 a month, easy. And you don't want someone to have to live in some of these awful facilities that we've all visited, right? Because they didn't have enough. And so this can be devastating. A lot of people think Medicare is a great long-term care policy for you. It is not. It is not going to help you if you have Alzheimer's or you need to be in a facility for 9 months or 9 years. So it will devastate. Look into options for yourself. If you're 70 already, it's very difficult to go get long-term care insurance, but think about how are you going to cover should the worst happen. And then on that cheery note, you need to monitor your progress. So unfortunately, this isn't a crock pot where you don't get to just set it and come back and forget it and it's all good to go. Your life changes, tax laws change, stock and bond markets go up and down. You have to look fairly frequently. The old line is don't look too frequently, because you can't make a souffle if you open the oven every 3 minutes. So if you look too often, you're going to make bad decisions. You're going to panic and make bad decisions. If you're looking at your stuff every day, more than likely you're going to make a bad decision thinking, especially if you're watching CNBC and all of the people whose hair is on fire at any given moment. But if you look fairly frequently, see that you're on track. Again, make sure that you're still going to hit that target that you're looking at and make adjustments as you go. The earlier, the better. If you're falling behind, figure this out, make small adjustments. You're not derailed. If you figure out you're behind this, whatever, your kids needed some help, you help fund that puts you behind a little bit, make small changes. You have a long time frame to make the changes. If you ignore it, then you have to make big, drastic changes later. So don't ignore those changes. And the flip side is things can go well. People forget things can go well. It's gone well for the last decade. I'm looking at people are ahead of their retirement projections. What can they do? We're having those fun conversations. We're saying you get to spend more if you choose to. You get to give gifts to your kids or to charity if you've got enough to do that. Or you can invest more conservatively. You can lock in, you're ahead of the game. Why take the risk that you originally thought you were taking? Maybe you'll end up in that direction. So monitor the progress and make adjustments. The earlier, the better. But don't look too often. So I was not joking. I want you all to work on this tomorrow. I want you to pull up the sheet of paper and start working on this. Those are the financial big rocks that people need to work on. And I would love for you to have this, beautiful, balanced, all your big rocks fully balanced in the not too distant future. So this brings up a bunch of questions, right? I'm not telling you the details. Delia had great details about how much you can put in, about the different Medicare options, Social Security, all of these different things. None of my stuff is telling you the details. And so if you need to put where the rubber meets the road and start making these decisions about things, guess what? You've got a list of 20 plus certified financial planners who are all experienced and want to help, that you can schedule a one-on-one planning session. Go to FPAOC click on that and schedule time. I've already, I think, got 3 different meetings all scheduled for the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited to chat with people and get them headed in the right direction. We're not selling anything. We're not collecting your information. We're just there to be that sounding board to help you answer those what if questions and harder questions that come up as a result of all of this. And so I'm looking forward to having those sessions as time goes on. I can't encourage you enough to do that. And that leaves me about 7 minutes early to do any questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Mark. Ariel asked, do you recommend having a savings first or paying off high interest debt first?
The answer, so I'm gonna answer, it depends. I'll just say that on the beginning of every answer. But so I'll give you an example. So my brother, I'll pick on my brother. My brother had a bunch of high interest credit cards. If he paid off all his high interest credit cards tomorrow, he would go out and go buy more stuff. And he would just have the same amount of debt at the end of the day. So in his case, having his credit cards maxed out was better for him life-wise, because he then had this money over here growing that he wasn't going to blow. And so if you're a disciplined person, and I love my brother dearly, but that's just not his strategy. If you're on discipline side, 100% pay down those credit cards. find a credit card company that will give you a lower rate. Call your company and say, hey, I really want to pay down my credit cards. What can you do for me? You'd be shocked how many will move it from 18% to 14% in fear that you might move it to somewhere else. And it's a phone call. If it takes you 15 minutes, that's that. If they say no, you're in the same boat that you were before, but you'd be shocked. But try to get it to the lowest rate possible. Use those techniques that Delia mentioned, the snowball or the other technique, but you're paying down a credit card at 10%. That's an investment that would have to be at more than 10%. So definitely pay down the debt first for any disciplined person.
Thank you. And when you say just get started, are you talking about saving or investing or both?
Yeah, so that's part of the hierarchy. So there's the saving. When I think about the difference, saving would be things that are more short-term needs, and like an emergency fund, or maybe you're buying a home in so many years or whatever. Investing would be more on the longer-term things like retirement. So I would encourage trying to balance those. When someone has a 401k available with a matching contribution, it's really hard to skip that opportunity. It's really hard to skip that, because imagine you put in $1 and they give you 50 cents, and that's a 50% return on your investment. Definitely take that deal. Even if there's a credit card, it might even make sense for you to go that route as well. But I would say try to balance the two. An emergency fund, once you get the emergency fund built and maybe your short-term savings, then really start to the longer-term savings types of areas.
Thank you. Another question is, how do you balance all of your goals, such as retirement, saving for a home, or other big financial goals? Is there a percentage for each goal or decision that you recommend?
So no, there's not one answer for everyone. Your goals are different, right? So everyone's goals are different. That's why I would encourage you to write the goals down, specific and measurable goals down on Post-it notes. Stick them on the wall. If it's all your decision, look at it one day and say, is this the one that's most important to me? Is this the one that's second most important to me? Is this the one that's third most important to me? Look at them tomorrow and maybe you change the order, right? Stick them on your refrigerator, stick it on your bathroom mirror where you brush your teeth every day. If you see those goals every day, it'll get into your, and then they're Post-it notes. Maybe it changes. Maybe you really, think about COVID. Home ownership changed in people's minds. They were thrilled to have apartments. Now they don't want apartments anymore. So their Post-it note moved up a level in their goals hierarchy. So your goals are different than my goals. And then I would encourage you to do this if you have a partner or a spouse, is independently do the Post-it notes and then just hope that they somehow mesh with each other, right? So Hawaii and home as your first thing might be a difficult conversation to have about or Harley, Hawaii, and home. With those three competing needs, it could create some really bad arguments. So make sure that the goals are that one person working toward a goal in a family is really difficult. Everyone kind of needs to be aligned there for sure.
So true. And I think it also depends on cash flows, like how much discretionary cash you really have for those goals.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But the world, like our perception, don't let your parents set your goals. Don't let the Cosby Show set your goals. Don't let TV set your goals. You set them. So if home ownership isn't your thing and travel is your thing, that is it. Do what it works best for you. You don't have to be a homeowner to be financially set. You don't have to be. It's a good start. It's a good option for 90% of people, but not for everyone. So just set your own goals ultimately and reprioritize over time.
Excellent. Joanne has a question. I'm starting to get some ability to save. How do I let go of the fear of now having a larger portion for investment in the process of planning and automating? Dollar cost averaging.
Yeah. Set it and forget it is probably the easiest way to do it. And that's dollar cost averaging. Just set it. And but a healthy dose of fear in investing world, I think, is a good thing. What gets people in trouble there, and I say healthy dose. Too much fear gets people in trouble. Not enough fear gets people in trouble, right? So when everyone thinks that it's easy, when this is all an easy game, with GameStop and SPACs and all these things that we're reading about in Bitcoin, all these things, then that's when I start to get worried. So the fact that you're afraid is a good, healthy dose of things, but automate it, get it out of your mind. And then I like this, I call it the Rip Van Winkle approach. You do it, you sit under a tree and you wake up, I forget how many years later, 25 years later, and you'll be really happy. And remember Delia's story about you do these right things and look where you end up with that. Just know that you're doing all the right things.
Hey, Mark, does it bear bringing up diversification here as a risk mitigation strategy to answer Joanne's question?
Absolutely. So the certain things are scarier than others when you're investing. So having a balanced investment approach you'll have things that are zigging while other things are zagging, and that's what that's all about. I'm a huge fan as people are building their wealth in these pre-built portfolios. So the target date funds, I think Delia mentioned, I call them life strategy funds, where we're going to be a growth investor or a moderate or a conservative, and then you let the professionals rebalance it and figure out how much of all the minutia, all the pebbles in sand, let them deal with the pebbles in the sand. And you say, I want to be a growth investor, and that looks like this kind of risk reward. And so I'm a huge fan of that for people that are on their own DIY, do-it-yourselfers, for sure. Good point, Eric.
I think I would also recommend our 4-part webinar series has a saving and investing session. I think it's the second session. So that goes more into detail, I think, too.
Yeah.
And that will start again in May on Saturday mornings.
Great.
Mike is asking if you have any sort of idea of a template to compile all investments. And then he wants you to review your assets and liabilities sheet one more time.
Yeah. So when I'm saying mention, put it all on the one sheet of paper, I'm talking about the highest level stuff. What do I have in this stock, or what do I have in this holding and this holding? That's more the pebbles side of it, not the big picture stuff. So know what you have on the high level, how much is in the accounts, and then so that makes this sheet of paper really easy, right? It says 401k, $14,000, savings account, $10,000. That's all that's listed on our sheet of paper. Later, you need to really dig into the pebbles side of things, is how is this money invested and all those other things. But start at the higher level, make sure you're there. I'm a big fan of things like Mint and some of these other tools that will put everything together at a high level and help you as well. But someone eventually has to dig through the holdings and the balance and the asset allocation and all the other things. But that's more the pebbles and the sand side of, I'll say pebbles side of what we're looking at here. As far as the template, there are some online tools. I think Morningstar has one where if you plug in all your different holdings, I've got $100 in this and $1,000 in this and $6,000 in this, it'll show you that pie chart, that asset allocation, how much is in stocks and how much is in bonds and so forth. And I think that's one tool you can go in and plug in to get that. And it's not very, I think it might even be free. There might even be a free tool to do those kinds of things.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's all of our questions for right now. Thank you so much, Mark. I think this presentation puts another perspective on some of the very same topics.